The Think Tank and Development Cooperation PPP section of the 2023 Global Korea Forum. The session is aired on the YouTube. Good afternoon. My name is Yu Young Min from NRC. I'm your moderator today. The session today is the last one of the three-day program of 2023 Global Korea Forum. We are having our panel discussions, and our discussions will be done with all the private think tanks, and we are here to look back on what we have achieved so far in terms of the development cooperation. For the smooth operation of this conference, I would like to kindly ask you to turn off your mobile phones or put them on the vibration mode. If you need to listen to another language, please use the receivers and please set the channel. Number 1 is Korean and number 2 is English. Now I'd like to give you the introduction of our speakers here. We have Mr. Chung Hae-woo, and we have Moon Mi-young, member of the Science and Technology. We have Ms. Park Sang-hee from KICCE, who is on the way. We have Mr. Hong Il-pyo from NRC. Mr. Hong is going to be the moderator for this session. We do also have our panelists, and for them to introduce themselves before we have our general discussion. First of all, I'd like to give you Vice President Min Hee-kyung of CJ Group, Mr. Shin Yun-sang, research member of KIET, Mr. Lee Kun-shik, Senior Manager of Hyundai Motor Group, Mr. Park Se-bum, Senior Researcher of POSCO Research Institute. Now the floor is open for the discussants. With the moderator, Secretary General Hong Il-pyo, and the panelists, would you please come up to the stage? I missed out one person, one very important person, Professor Moon Myung-jae, one of our panelists. Sorry about that. My apology. It's my first time to be a moderator, and also I forgot to mention another very important VIP, Mr. Chun Jung-ho, research member of Korea Occupational Capacity Research Institute. Very nice to see you. As was introduced, my name is Hong Il-pyo, Secretary General of NRC. We are here to talk about the issue of the think tanks and the PPP, public-private partnerships in development cooperation. I'm very pleased to give you this session here. We have finished 3-day program so far, and this is the very last one, and also we are just beginning the important steps to have the further collaboration amongst the private and public organizations. So it is not only the end of the 3-day session, but also a beginning of a great and beautiful relationship. If we could have more time, we could go deeper and deeper. However, we only have 1 hour for this session to be allocated. Therefore, we have to be very wise in using our time. I'll give you only 5 to 10 minutes per person for the discussant, and if we have more time left, we will open the floor for the audience to ask their questions. Maybe we can turn around for these discussants to have one more session of speaking up a little bit more, like 1 or 2 minutes later. When we think of the think tanks and the PPP, as our theme indicates, we have all the people here working at the National Research Institute. So from our perspective, now we always ask questions what think tanks are about. So the PPPs and think tanks are not that much different, but depending on the time we're talking about in history, the roles of think tanks would be different. Think tanks would play a different role in developing countries than those in developed countries do. We always know about the impact of these think tanks in terms of the national development. For example, in Korea, during the period of development, we were very successful in exemplifying our success cases. And also we had the government-sponsored organizations. They were playing the role of think tanks so far. Now we are also having a lot of research centers under the auspices by the government, and they are also working as think tanks. However, since Korea is at the entrance of becoming a developed country and one of the top 10 countries in the world, we are given new missions. Then we have to rethink the roles of the think tanks so far. Maybe their roles so far have to be changed. This is also the mandate given to us as well by others. At the same time, we not only have to solve the Korean problems and issues and be able to answer the questions regarding the policies, on top of that, we have to broaden our vision. On the landscape of the global arena, we have to be able to encompass what is happening in the world, not just in Korea. We have to be able to think of the developing countries, and we also have to be looking into the global south. Meeting the demands of the time, what role should be played by the Korean National Research Institutes? What more can we do, and what more should we do? Regarding the requests from the international community, we have to be able to lead the way. At the same time, government-sponsored organizations have been working a lot so far in Korea, but we do see the emergence of private sector think tanks and research institutes. They're also seeing a lot of results. More relationships are being formed amongst all these different types of research institutes. So we are being asked collectively about what roles we can play together and differently. All of the panelists here have been thinking about these same questions so far as it seems, and you've been practicing and thinking about these issues. The fact that we are gathered here together is a result of our achievements so far individually. That is the purpose of having this session now. Why don't we now go about all the panelists to think about the development cooperation with the think tanks and the PPP. Based off of that, would you like to also share your personal thoughts as well about the development cooperation? So please confine your thoughts onto the roles of the think tanks. And also you can be futuristic in your responses. For example, you can add more things to do in the future so that you can have better achievements. Maybe you can ask other parties to do the things that you wish to see. Time is always limited, so it is regrettable to have only short time, but with that order, I'd like to ask you to talk about your experience and deep thinking for about 5 to 6 minutes individually. We gave your names before to the audience. First and foremost, Executive Vice President Min Hee-kyung, CJ Group, is here. So a lot of things have happened under her leadership. And also in Vietnam, I heard, because rumors that the small things are beautiful. So you are exemplary of that, please. Thank you very much. As was just introduced, my name is Min Hee-kyung. I'm Executive Vice President of CJ Group. I was told that time is quite limited, but I'm very happy to say that we are working very well with KOICA, and I am very honored to give you the examples and case studies of working in other countries. First and foremost, we've been working in Vietnam for the rural and agriculture projects. Minh Thuan San is actually the area habituated by the minorities who are vulnerable economically. Along with the farmers and agriculture people there, we were actually growing peppers there. Starting from 2014 up until 2017, we've been working together with KOICA under the sponsorship of PPP. Now alone we are left single-handedly. Our always wish is to have the KOICA coming back to us so that we can work together. So we're always waiting for KOICA to come back. These kinds of agriculture products, just like in Korea, we do have our mission of the company, fair competition, and also contribution to the nation. These are the virtues of our company. We always wanted to work together and grow together with the country. In Vietnam, we are number 2 food processing company. So in Vietnam, we were thinking of what kind of business more we can do this. At that time, Vietnamese government put the priority on the new movement of the rural areas. That's why we were asked by the Vietnamese government to look for some areas to go in and work. And peppers are like commodity for the agriculture products, and it can be raw materials. So we were thinking about what crops we were doing it, so we chose peppers there. So KOICA was working for the community programs, and also CJ was doing the transfer of technology and knowledge of agriculture under the CSP. During the project period, we built processing factory of these agriculture products. We were also making the co-op for this product. After a decade, we agreed upon returning the project and business back to the Vietnamese government. It was the very first trial for working in the agriculture practice for our company. That was quite particular in that regard. One of the particularities is that since we were not very much experienced in the development, we wanted to have all the partners that we could have. So we were welcoming everybody. For example, Yeongnam National University was the one who helped us for this Hemal movement. And also, we were benefited by another agriculture company. We were just food company, we were not agriculture company. And also K-Water was helping us with the waterways that were very important for the agriculture. They came in as a builder of the waterworks, but later they ended up making wells for every household in that village before they returned to Korea. So it was also very much helpful to us. Although our project was not a big one, we were getting the attention from the governments and by many others because we had a very perennial products like coffee and cocoa. So Nestle was a company that did all these kind of products in Africa in a very big, large scale, plantation type. But our case was very small because we were concentrated in only one type of crop, which was pepper. So that was quite a rare case. Our size was mediocre compared to other larger corporations. That is why we got attention from many other people there. The lessons learned from our experience are as follows, not just in Korea but also internationally. The socially responsible companies cannot work alone to solve all the problems in the world. They have to be co-working with various stakeholders. So we were able to make a solution model doing that. So that is a one meaning of ours. And then from the day one, we've been working with the government, which is Vietnamese government. Secondly, we didn't focus our attention on the ODA. We didn't want to be a donor company. We wanted to have the empowerment of these village people. That way, education and training worked very well. Also, the value chain should be connected together to have the results in the social value. Last but not least, I can emphasize that ODA under the framework of a time scale can be limited in terms of the performance. It is because people are changing. Self-sufficiency of the people would require more than 10 years, not just 2 or 3 years. Even 10 years are not enough, I feel, because I'm still wondering when we can make them really self-sufficient. I know that we have a lot of experts on ODA. I'd like to ask you a favor. Please do not set the timeline, only set the goals. Then the timeline will be determined later. That is my suggestion and favor to ask of you. Thank you very much.
사실 그 기업들이
As far as companies are concerned, they are more after profits and not the government. That's the common conception. But as I hear you, it seems the situation is the way around. The other way around. And we are limited in many areas, but the actual private sector company is actual experience is very helpful. So how can these projects be incorporated into research projects? That was her comment. Next is Dr. Shin Yun-sung of KIET. We had many sessions during the past 3 days, and one of the most commonly came up topics was the marking the 50th establishment of diplomatic relations with Indonesia and many other projects with that country. And during the morning, we had an MOU signed between Korea and BRIN of Indonesia. So a research institute of a country, how is it evolving as time goes by? I think you know very well. So let's hear from Dr. Shin Yun-sung. Good afternoon. My name is Shin Yun-sung of KIET. When I joined the research institute, my first task was to develop a Korean-style ODA from the Prime Minister's office. And when I joined, I wasn't involved in the development cooperation, so industry and private sector experts participated in today's event, so I felt quite comfortable. And when I talk in front of development cooperation people, they are all about making profits, and it was hard really for me to make comments. But after I did the study, I happened to be dispatched to Indonesia, and in the course, previously during the Millennium Development Goal era, the goals were changed to Sustainable Development Goals, and one major change was that the goals should be sustainable and each communities and countries should be independent and self-sufficient. In other words, each country or the recipient bodies should be able to produce profits. They should have human resource capacities, logistics, and marketing. So as the trend changed to industrial ODA, now I see representatives from frontiers. So thanks to all of the influence of my seniors now, I've been involved in this area. And I have been interested in global supply chain development in one sector, perhaps automobiles or in other areas. Sometimes if there's a missed link, then the whole production is put to a halt. So this is not just about giving assistance. Our international cooperation projects are closely related to our own benefits. And while I have been engaged in ODA projects, actually people in Africa didn't consume corns very much, but since the US provided corn, corns became their staple food. So as they were receiving more rice, their major food became rice. So as more assistance comes in, their major industry and their major food changes. So as more development projects take place, it's closely linked to the future of Korea and the benefit of Korea. So I think these projects should be considered from that perspective. In that regard, let me comment on how Korea's ODS should be changed. Our projects are time-based and short-term based. Unless the partners to change, we cannot continue to do the project. So our ODAs are grant-based. So once we send materials to the local partners, once the equipment and things fail, it takes more money, more cost to fix it. So whenever there's a new project, the governments of partner countries are afraid because they have to think about the debt and the responsibility to pay back. So in the case of Great Britain, they do a lot of grants. Also, they provide a lot of loans as well. They do that because they saw that by providing assistance in these two ways, they actually gain added value. So the researchers in these state-run institutes should be able to persuade relevant people in our counterpart countries' government, persuading to them that if you engage in this project, you are going to gain a lot. And the most projects that we did was feasibility study. So what I'd like to say is that we have selected several people and we have done so many projects that we shouldn't be satisfied with these results. We have to provide both grant and loan as well to bring about real benefits. With regard to knowledge transfer projects, we haven't been in a situation to spend that much of an ODA budget. Now that we have become a donor country from a recipient country, we should think more than knowledge sharing. The Indonesian projects, the Philippines and the Malaysia and Thailand projects, we are scaling from the Indonesian projects to these countries. And so I have representatives from POSCO, CJ, and Hyundai. And we have to get together and discuss more. We got a lot of help from them. Korean companies say it's not possible, but the local governments of our partner countries had a positive response. We had a positive response from them. So in terms of recycling of waste, Korea is the only country that does recycle our wastes when we dump garbage. And our example can be applied to other countries because it's a well-developed good practice. So I think the future of us should be industrial ODA that is mutually beneficial, not just giving help to the partnering country.
사실
Thank you very much. As mentioned, today's forum is not about just the policies or directions of ODA only. We are here to find the synergy between the think tanks and the private party organizations. Based on your experiences, we'd like to share our insights. Then we can formulate some suggestions to ODA, but at the same time, we can also suggest some future collaborations amongst yourselves. That's another part of our purpose of having this. So we don't really have to confine our discussions on ODA only, but we also have some other leeway of going beyond ODA. Thank you very much for that. Anyway, now moving on, I'd like to ask Mr. Lee Gon-suk, Chief Executive Coordinator of Hyundai Motor Group. And I overheard that you have been working a lot for the EV projects. So Hyundai Motor is quite active in electronic vehicle, and Mr. Lee is actually responsible for the Asian market, not just Indonesia. He has been involved in the business of making the electric vehicles, because the Asian countries are struggling with the climate changes and also different temperatures. You must have amassed a lot of experiences, and I also heard that you were able to maintain good relationship with the partners there. Would you like to share with us what more could be done by us on behalf of the Korean think tanks? Mr. Lee, please. Thank you very much and good afternoon. I'm from Hyundai Motor Group. I am a team leader of the external corporations in the East Asia team. Let me introduce myself first. Starting from 2000, Asian market was on the focal point by Hyundai Motors for export. That's why I joined the team. Ever since, I've been living in Indonesia, and I've been also contributing to the relationship between Indonesia and Korea for the projects related to the Hyundai Motors. So I have had a lot of experiences of working both parties. So based on my experiences, I'm going to share some thoughts about this kind of cooperation. Yesterday, we completed our Singapore smart factory building, and I joined, of course, the ceremony, and I'm still working for that factory. And also we finished our projects in 2023, and then we are selling our EVs. Next year we're going to have the battery cell factory in conjunction with the LG company. And then for the first time in Asia, we are the very first Korean company who is selling the battery for the electric vehicle. Asia, of course, as you know, has a very big population. It has a very high purchasing power. Overall, Asia is quite attractive market. But so far, Japan has been there already, and it has made the whole board of guests a game for the market. It is not easy for us to break the rule made by Japan. What is important to do that is cooperation and collaboration. AREA is the name of the research institute by Japan. They are developing the logics for making development cooperation. And then JICA comes forward to the field in order to execute those logics. And then Japanese government is collaborating. using all these forces together, they have already formed the very, very favorable responses from the East Asian countries, and that makes the job very easy for them. So that kind of system has been formulated in those countries for a long time. All the countries in the Southeast Asia had favored Japan. It is very difficult for them to be distracted. Without breaking the rules made by Japan, we would not be able to go anywhere. Thanks to the very active support by the Korean government, we have been successful in Indonesia. So far, so good. However, in other countries in Southeast Asia, we have still a long way to go. I would like to emphasize the role of think tanks first. If you think about it, if it is well known in Asia, if it is producing regular reports, there are very few of them. For the last 15 years, I've been in Indonesia, I've been making reports, I've been also working with many governments in Southeast Asia. What is lacking so far is the full understanding about Southeast Asian countries. Whenever I made proposals to those companies, they didn't look at these projects from these government issues. They've been only thinking about from the perspective of their each company. So that kind of notion should be changed. From next year, think tanks from major countries, universities of such countries have to be collaborating with us. Research results will be accumulated thereof. As briefly mentioned, Korea Asia Development Center was actually a form of cooperation suggested by Hyundai Motors to the government for so long. It's not a matter of choice, it's a must do things. So I really hope that this can be fully utilized from next year. I've been emphasizing the role of think tanks all along because you have to know more about the Southeast Asian countries in order to know the feasibility of ODA projects. Without understanding the policies of the markets of each country, if you just move forward with the ODAs only, you have to ask yourselves about the sustainability or consistency. As for the policy agreements, you should really have the full understanding about those countries. And then you can ask Korean companies if they have the right fit for these countries. So the right mixture of policy should be made. And that's what the Korean Asian Cooperation Center should do. Only after that kind of accumulation of information, ODA can be promoted to be successful. Then Korean companies can be more facilitated going into the Southeast Asian market. Not just this year, but also in next year, we are expecting a lot of risky challenges because the fightings are done by all these countries like the US, and also the Israel is at war with Palestine attacked, and also Ukraine-Russia war is going on, and also Taiwan is at risk. We've been asked to think about all these geographic and geopolitical issues, and that would be quite important for making economic decisions. Therefore, from next year, from the Korea Asian Policy Development Center, we really hope to work together. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. And for your reference, the Korean Asian Cooperation Center that you referred to is non-existent at the moment. It is only a concept. We have a plan to establish one in Jakarta, Indonesia. It's only just underway and it's in work in progress. If that center is actually created, well, of course, compared to area of Japan, it is very small compared to that, but still it's a great starting point to know more about Asia. Also, it can provide more professional information about Asia by region and by theme. That would be a very important platform to have all the information across Asian countries. So along with Dr. Shin from KIET, we are in the process of making that center. So you are expressing your wishes and hopes about that center when it is established. We are here to talk about Asia and things today, but yesterday I was in another session with African ambassadors to Korea. So they started to talk about the issues at Africa. And also yesterday and today we've been also talking about the Central Asia like Uzbekistan and also the Central Asian regions. So coverage is very wide. Here in this session, we would be talking more about the Southeast Asian countries, but we really have to think of expanding the horizon, of course. So why don't we just extend our landscape further? Also, yesterday we had a keynote speaker, President Kim Eun-mi of Ewha Women's University. She's been talking about SDGs. What she emphasized mostly was about the capacity building. The importance and significance of SDGs were mentioned, and also the ODA budget to be greatly expanded from next year was mentioned, so that we have to get ready for these strategies and policies to use them wisely compared to the scope of budget. Capacity building is required both for the donor and recipient countries. From the perspectives of the recipient countries, when they receive aids or resources or human talents, they have to be able to observe into their circumstances. So whether they are just loans or grants, they should be able to accept and also make use of them very clearly and wisely. So we have Mr. Chun Jung-ho, who has been experienced in that regard. Please.
저는
Thank you very much.
제 경험을 가지고 한번 말씀.
Let me introduce my experience. I have been involved in Africa ODA for several years and another ODA with Indonesia. Africa ODA was there was a 5-year project, and once the project was over, we had to make sure that the project will sustain for another next year. So I had that experience. So with a focus of a long-term perspective, you mentioned that we should do it long-term. So it drove home to me when you mentioned it. I think ODA is very difficult. I'm an IT specialist, so if it's creating a program and whatnot, it would be very easy. However, and each country has different needs and requirements and different sets of skill sets of people, so I had to think in a lot of ways. And developing countries had high need for capacity, human resource capacity building. They wanted to be like us, like Korea. And there are many other advanced countries stationed in local cooperation partner countries, but what they want the most is they would like to get help from Korea because they want to develop as fast as Korea did. What they need, my experience tells that they don't want what we did several years ago. They want what we do right now. One example is that using the IT technology, they wanted to learn how professors teach students in Namibia. And I taught them using artificial intelligence. I have created a platform for them, but they wouldn't be able to produce content, so I told them how to do that using AI, and they learned very well. So in Korea, we had fixed line internet and then wireless connectivity, but now they started off with wireless connectivity first, so they catch up with us very fast and they learn very fast. So what I learned from this experience is that they want what we do right now. Also, another project that I do in Indonesia, Malaysia, I am conducting education, what we do in Korea, to those people in Indonesia. This job vocational capability area, once we provide knowledge and education, we want to make sure that they can do on their own. And that has been our main focus. In our research institutes, for example, teaching professors and teaching courses that students can learn, they have more requirements coming up when we provide knowledge. So a lot of portions are connected holistically. So we have various institutions with expert knowledge in different fields. So if we cooperate, who are the experts in many areas, then we can provide all sorts of knowledge for them. Program development, planning, evaluation. We create programs and contents based on the needs of companies when we do that. So the same can be applied in the partner countries, in the developing countries. So I think our agency or institute's roles were quite important. And in the case of Africa, I had the experience of making a plan for them to establish a think tank. So that could be another help. In the case of talent development, what I want to say is that vocational training and human resource development is closely linked together, especially in developing countries. It's not that they want equipment alone. All of the projects that we think of should be closely linked with human resources when you make plan and implement projects. And it would be very difficult for the government to coordinate everything and every factors in a project. So think tanks like us can be involved in those projects. Thank you very much.
아까 소개
Thank you so much. Well, when I was introducing him, I didn't ask the audience to give him a big applause. So thank you very much once again. As I heard him saying, the research institutes under the auspices of the government have done a lot and have more to do in the future. Since they are sponsored by the government, in a way, they can have bigger potential for diversity and also future programs. By line ministry, they have their researches and they have own programs that they have. It is difficult for them to go over to other line ministries, but if in the future, if they do, they can be more specialized. For example, they have come a long way from wire to wireless. That kind of experience can be repeated for the cooperations amongst research centers under different line ministries. The next one is related to the secondary battery. We have one of the most renowned researchers in the secondary battery here in Korea. I had a chance to visit Indonesia on business. There was a steel factory in that country by POSCO, and I learned from there they had a lot to do in Indonesia with this presence of the steel company. NRC doesn't seem to be so related to POSCO as a steel company. That was my idea in the beginning before visiting there. But when I learned about their policies, economic coordination, communications with the community in the local areas, they had a lot of know-how that should be possessed by some academic research centers like NRC. So I was amazed to see the scope of their researches, and also I was learning a lot, hearing that we can be multidisciplinary to be in real use. So, senior researcher, Mr. Park Jae-bum, please. Well, thank you very much. As was introduced, my name is Park Jae-bum. I was amazed to be invited to this session because I'm representing the private sector. But hearing other speakers so far, now I have more ideas about what I should say. So I can be based on my previous experience and thinking. I am responsible for the battery business, especially the raw materials and materials of the secondary batteries in POSCO Research Institute. As you know, POSCO is a steel company, and it started its history and business as a steel making factory. So we believed that the steel would make a country when we were first established. And then now our company mission is now changing from the country making steel to the industry making steel. So I can talk about the industry in terms of the trend and the prospects of each country. Based on that, what role should be made by the companies and what is the future road ahead? I've been thinking about these things normally. So if I change a little bit of these things and scale up a little bit, they can be applied to a nation, not just a company. Since I'm representing private sector research institute, I am experienced with a lot of things in a lot of companies. My experience goes to many other experiences with so many countries like the US. I've been to Australia, New Caledonia, Argentina, Chile, Brazil, Madagascar in Africa, and Tanzania. All these countries are the ones that I'm involved in for investment, factory building, and collaborations. Whenever I go out to those countries to talk, sometimes they see me as a POSCO person, sometimes they see me as a research person. When they have some business to do, they see me as a POSCO employee. And if they have some needs about the industry as a whole, they see me as a researcher. So from the perspective of VOC, I am seen differently. So my experience and know-how for a private company can be used for a company and state as well. One thing regrettable here is that as a think tank, we enjoyed a better years in the past when our ideas were used very much by other policymakers. But nowadays, in-house research centers are not in much demand nowadays. They are being replaced by other players. But if we can use our expertise and know-how at the national level, I still believe that there can be a good way of making solutions possible. So that can be a great win-win strategy between public and private parties. I really want to see the activation of these discussions of ideas. So that is what I have been thinking so far. Secondary battery is really a hot topic nowadays, and Korea is really advanced in terms of this industry. Whenever I'm asked to go to other conferences as a speaker, I am feeling that I'm representing my company, but in a way, they make me believe that I'm representing Korea from time to time. So I was sometimes bewildered. Am I representing POSCO or am I representing the Republic of Korea? When we deal with the government, we have limitation of our scope because we're only part of a company. So we can do our job if it is between companies for our projects. But for the national projects, we have to be working with the national think tanks. So the collaboration between national and in-house think tanks would be very desirable. This morning, I met Dr. Shin Yun-sung, and then of course he and I have been accompanying many of the overseas travels. I was in another conference session to talk about the secondary battery, and I heard that the nickel is very well found in Indonesia, and also Korea is the country that is producing the final products of nickels and also the secondary batteries. And I felt that these two countries can create synergy by combining their capabilities and resources together. These kinds of win-win possibilities can be excavated with other countries as well. By representatives of these research institutes, whether they are coming from the private or public sessions, they will be making more contributions when it comes to the future collaboration with international partners. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. As you mentioned, recently, in-house research institutes are now working as the representatives of their companies. So these think tanks are invited from time to time to these kind of conferences, although there are not many. I really hope that these chances can be increased in number with this forum today as a momentum. So we are very happy to invite him from a company. Now that we have to change our way of dialogues and communications according to the times, we expect that more chances will arise in the future. Last but not least, I'm going to now invite Professor Moon Myung-jae, who is also a chairman of the National Development Agenda, and also he's a person of a model to be the national think tank. He has been always giving us good thoughts about the roles to be played by the national think tanks. On the other hand, he has been also involved in the teaching of the Khoika people. He has been running the master's degree program for the people working for Khoika. So he has have a lot of hats like Khoika, capacity building, think tanks. It's in every field he has been experienced a lot, so he has a lot to talk today, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Please.
네, 반갑습니다.
Good afternoon. Many of you are quite active in your expert area, and you have shared your valuable experiences. I think you asked me last, perhaps for me to agree to all of your opinions. But let me just add one more thing. With respect to development cooperation, there are some considerations. First, it is also beneficial to our interest. Of course, ODA's focus is providing assistance. However, from a national perspective, we cannot but think about our own interest and benefit. So, which countries benefit ODA? If you identify those countries, you will see Korea benefits a lot in those countries. So, because for these ODA projects, we are considering our national interest. In that regard, development cooperation, from a development cooperation perspective, I would like to add a few things. The state-run research institutes think tank model is actually a good example for other countries who want to follow suit. The pool of experts in that country, in those countries, is quite few and limited, so this itself can be a good practice. For example, in Kenya and Myanmar, they had a Myanmar version of KDI. So each institute of Korea can become a good example for these developing countries. Second, from the point of think tanks, individual countries' strategies, plans, and visions should be studied thoroughly. For example, just as we had 5-year economic development plan, many countries have 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and vision of up to 25 years down the road. So, with what kind of strategy, vision is each country leading their development? If we look at those visions and strategies, we'll see each country's priority areas, and their leaders of each country actually mention those priority areas when they deliver speeches in front of public. With respect to ASEAN, so we make plan based on ASEAN's priority. So some of you mentioned expert knowledge of the local area. So we have to first and foremost have complete understanding of the area. For example, people there, perhaps if they don't have any digestive power, they have problem digesting milk, but we try to export milk, and we provided our grain that we have surplus of, but actually the recipient country didn't need that, but their entire industry changed to receive that kind of grain supply. So we have to consider that as well. Also, another thing is that when we make plans, we rely heavily on our own experience. But as we go forward with the project size being bigger, then we have to be more strategic and wise. I have conducted training for government officials of 12 countries last year, and based on my experience, so I have experience doing it on my own, representing Korea, or I became part of another collaboration with other countries. So what is important is that we collaborate with other international agencies to provide valuable opportunities for developing countries. It seems that the MC is standing there, so I think I have to wrap up my comments. So in the future, it is important that our individual projects are important. However, from a holistic perspective, each and every project should be coordinated, and we have to ensure consistency. Another project that was very big in the past was involving island countries in the Pacific area. So we wanted to have a satellite put up so that they can have better mobility. And then the COVID pandemic hit, so they benefited a lot. So in that initiative, Japan participated and many other countries participated together with Korea. So there are parts that we can do, and the government, state-run think tanks can do. Also, professors at universities have their own role to contribute. So we have to consider all of these factors holistically. Thank you. We started at 5:10. We should have started at 5, so it was delayed a little bit. So I assume that we can close our session by perhaps 6:10 or 6:20. So I ask for your understanding. So of course the discussants can share our ideas and thoughts a lot, but would anyone in the floor would like to raise their hand and ask questions? And then the panelists can provide their opinions or answers. Are there any questions or comments from the audience? If you raise your hand, we can pass the mic on to you. Please feel free to do that. And people hate eye contacting with me, but as I mentioned before, this is not a common occasion. It was happened as a special occasion, and all the parties, private research institute, government research institute, private sector companies gathered together, and this is a rare experience, so people might be uncomfortable or reluctant to ask questions. But are there any panelists who would like to add? One thing I forgot about mentioning was that last week I had a chance to meet with Professor Vanguard of USC, and he mentioned that Korea's size and influence is bigger than Russia. Usually, advanced countries' relationship they pursue is G to G. It's the first track. Second track is private to private. For us, we say it's 1.5 track. In other words, private sector and public sector are kind of mixed together. For example, at the ASEAN summit, the leaders do not take pictures with Myanmar. However, they engage in private sector businesses with Myanmar. So if governments cannot do that, we, like research institutes, can fill in the gap, and we can engage in overseas activities in the sense that we are pursuing 1.5 track. So if you give us a lot of feedback regarding the need for establishing a project, we will make sure to incorporate your feedback and opinions to make a comprehensive plan. And at the expert discussion, would you please, private sector, participate more in this effort? Thank you very much. Thank you. I majored in social studies, and I am invited in these discussions. So people talk about time limits, so I avoided talking about time limitation, but I think it's about time that we should probably wrap up our discussion. ODF, EDCF, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and every government agencies and departments. There have been some change in the system of involving departments, and our national budget for ODA has increased, and our government has declared vision for ODA for the future. A lot of activities are taking place on the international front. So we have been thinking and sharing our thoughts as to what our roles should be during the past 2 days and also today's session. Of course, there will be more areas to talk about, but regarding those areas, we can have another opportunity of this kind of session to share our ideas. And what we have discussed will make sure that the information will be shared in the form of publication or carrying articles in journals and so on. Regarding international projects, partner countries it's not unilateral anymore. So we talk about a lot about common interests, and I think it's time that we have to think about partner relations on an equal footing, not just us providing benefits to them only. So I think the idea became clear as I listened to your opinions. I think the 1-hour session might not be that sufficient, but I think we have touched upon many issues. I hope you have had a lot of valuable input. And so with this, I would like to close the session. Once again, would you please give them a big round of applause? Thank you very much. Thank you for participating in this last session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, panelists. You can now go back to your seats. Now, we will hear closing remarks by Jung Hae-gu, chairperson of NRC. After his remarks, we'll have group photo taking session followed by dinner. So I ask you to participate throughout the end of the event. Thank you very much. Ms. Chairman Jung, would you please come to the podium?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jung Hae-gu, Chairman of National Research Council for Economics, Humanities, and Social Studies. For the last 3 days, starting from the 20th to 22nd, the 2023 Global Korea Forum, GSFKF, is now coming to an end. At the Global Korea Forum over the past 3 days, more than 10 organizations, including STEPI, Science and Technology Policy Institute, KIEP, Korea Institute for International Economic Policy, participated in conference sessions and round tables. First, in the regional conference session, members from major partner companies of Korea and many regional experts from ASEAN and Central Asia participated to discuss win-win cooperation plans and development cooperation strategies. In-depth discussions were held on future strategies and tasks in various fields, including Korea's future tasks to become an ODA advanced country. With the Korea-Africa Summit scheduled to be held in June 2024, a roundtable was held with the ambassadors of major African countries to Korea. There was also a very meaningful time to lay the foundation for future cooperation between Korea and major African countries. Consequently, the Global Korea Forum was able to achieve a lot of results throughout these discussions. First of all, the discussions at the GKF served as an opportunity to solidify our cooperation with the ASEAN region. In addition to deepening our cooperative relations with Cambodia and Indonesia, KIET was able to expand its network of mutual cooperation by signing a new MOU with Indonesia's National Research Innovation Agency, BRIN. Through above discussions, the Global Korea Forum was able to have a lot of discussions on cooperation between Korea and major African countries with African ambassadors. We were able to meet with officials from major Central Asian countries such as Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and Uzbekistan to explore ways for win-win cooperation between Korea and Central Asia. In this regard, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who participated in various conference sessions and roundtables of the Global Korea Forum to share their insights on international and development cooperation in Korea. I'd like to thank the organizations for their contributions. The Global Korea Forum is now concluding with the last conference session on the role that think tanks should play in public-private partnerships. I would like to express my gratitude to all the people who participated in here, including Executive Vice President Min Hee-kyung of CJ Group, Professor Moon Myung-jae of Yonsei University, Senior Researcher Park Jae-bum of Post-3, Senior Research Fellow Shin Yun-seok of Kiet, Mr. Lee Gun-sik from Hyundai Motors, and Research Fellow Chun Jung-ho of Korea Vocational Research Institute. Finally, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who participated in GKF Forum and all the staff members who did their best to prepare this event. With that, this concludes the 3-day Global Korea Forum 2023. Thank you very much.
다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you very much once again. Please give him a big hand. Last but not least, we'd like to have a group photo session with the VIPs and distinguished guests. The panelists and the VIPs, would you like to come up to the podium?
행사 이후에는 만찬이 제공될 예정이오니 마지막까지 같이 해주시면 감사하겠습니다. 자, 금일 행사에 참석해주신 네이빈 여러분 다시 한번 감사드립니다. 지금까지 연구회 국제협력부장이었습니다. 식사 맛있게들 하세요.